I'm Allan, author of the One Page Marketing Plan, and this is Influencing Entrepreneurs.
After years of teaching entrepreneurship and consulting business owners, I realized that true knowledge comes from the wins and losses of those entrepreneurs. These are the stories of those business leaders. I'm Casimir Ward, and this is Influencing Entrepreneurs.
All right, today we are here, and I'm very excited that we have Allan, the author of the One Page Marketing Plan, with us today. Allan, thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, it's so good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Well, I say this a lot in my practice. My whole practice is based on, fractional CFO work in accounting. And I always say marketing is the polar opposite of accounting. Like the extent of my knowledge in marketing has been, it's important and that's about it. I don't know how it works or what it does. So, one of the ways we got connected is I read your book, The One Page Marketing Plan, and it has just had an unbelievable impact on our business. So in this, where did your marketing journey start to send you off to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I think actually similar to yourself. I did not come from a marketing background, and I know you say marketing is polar opposite to being a CFO or a numbers person, but I'm actually a numbers person, and I'm not from a financial numbers, but from an engineering point of view. And so my first business was in the IT space, and I was an IT geek, really good at what I did, all of that sort of stuff. And then I thought, you know what? I'm smart enough. I don't have to work for this guy. I'll start my own business, right? Because I'm really good at what I do. And so that started my journey into figuring out how to get clients. And for a long time, I was super frustrated because I didn't know how to get clients in the door. I was really good at what I did. I was a smart guy. I could follow a process. I could follow a plan. But I struggled to get clients in the door, and that really took me on a decade-long journey to really learn and understand marketing. And so, long story short is I figured it out. I figured it out through expensive trial and error, and I documented a lot of my process in the one-page marketing plan. I attended every webinar, I hired coaches, I read books, but there was nothing that really took me from zero to really understanding marketing at a high level. And I think that's why the books resonated with so many people, because it's the book I wish I had when I was first starting and launching my business and trying to understand marketing.
Yep. Well, and with that, when you said you were trying to get clients, what type of, were you just trying to get IT clients at that time?
I get IT clients. That's it. Yeah. I was like, hey, I'm really good at this IT stuff. In fact, I was one of the best in the industry, but I'd see my competitors and they were running rings around me financially. And I'm like, what is going on? And sometimes they would hire me to teach them the latest tech. And I'm like, there's nothing more frustrating when you see people who have an inferior product or an inferior service and they're doing better than you financially. You're like, what am I missing here?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I loved about your book is how you broke it down into the 9 sections.
Yes.
And it really kind of filled the gap, because overall, it really was the customer journey is what the one-page marketing plan is.
Yes.
And it's funny because as I read through the book, the last 3 quadrants are all about the customer experience.
Yes.
Literally, and you literally say it like, deliver a kick-ass customer experience so they want it. And what's funny is, a lot of the companies I work with, a lot of the ones I talk to over the time, they have one of 2 problems. They either have an unbelievable process and system to deliver that kick-ass experience, but they have no way to drive sales, or they can drive sales and they struggle to get them through their process and everything's clunky along the way. And where your book really filled in a lot of the gaps is, even when those are aligned, filling the sales funnel is still always a concern, because sales without marketing eventually exhausts all of itself.
Yeah, and I mean, the better we can do our marketing, the easier sales can be. So if you've attracted the right leads, if you've nurtured them well, if they understand your product, they know you, they like you, they trust you. Well, sales becomes so easy and frictionless. Whereas if you have a poor marketing process, if or no marketing process, sales is an uphill battle. You now have to convince and cajole and convert and all of that sort of thing. So for me, I know marketing is really firing on all cylinders when sales becomes easy and frictionless and essentially just order taking, right? So that's where we want to get to. We want to get to a prospect who's warm, who understands what you're about, who understands the value proposition, all of those sorts of things. So when you get on a call with them, you're talking to them at a very high level rather than who are you, what is this about, how much does it cost, right? That's a very hard place to start a sales call and get someone across the line.
Yeah. So talking about the 9 quadrants, and listen, whether it's on this podcast, whether it's in my professional people, I beg people read one-page marketing plan. I've even talked to digital marketing agencies that are reading it just to refresh their their entire processes and procedures. But with that, the top 3 sections really focusing on building that marketing platform, where do you see a lot of people struggle? What is one of the biggest things that people just kind of, they do the thing? Because I will tell you, over the years, I did all the marketing things. It's just none of them worked.
Yeah.
What are a lot of people do that they just spin their wheels on and not work well?
So the one-page marketing plan, and I mean, for anyone watching, this is kind of the visual of what it looks like. It's basically 9 squares on a single page. We start off with target market, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, and it is foundational, because if we don't have a very, very clear understanding of our target market, who they are, and define them tightly, we're going to have a lot of problems downstream. So our messaging is going to be weak. Our media is going to be kind of displaced and all over the place. So it's really foundational, which means foundational is just a fancy way of just saying if you mess that up, you're going to mess a lot of things downstream up as well. So a lot of big mistake people make is like hey, our target market is everyone. Hey, we're an accountant, we're a lawyer, we're a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, whatever. Everyone can benefit from our product. And that may be true. That may be 100% true that your product can help a lot of people. But who do we want to go after actively in the marketing process? Who do we want to spend money to attract? Who do we want to run ads to? So we want a very, very specific target market, because if you have a specific target market, you can have a very specific message. And we want the response to our message to be, hey, that's for me, right? So rather than a generic message, which you'd have to have if you're targeting anyone and everyone.
Yeah. So figuring out that targeting market, again, going back to the book, one of the things and mistakes we all make is getting your name out there, spending money on just getting your name out there. Like, why do we all subscribe to this bad prescription?
Well, it feels intuitive. It's like, hey, if I widen the net, I'm going to get more people and make more money, right? It feels like the right thing to do. And I mean, even I catch myself from time to time doing it, saying, hey, why don't we go after this market, or why don't we increase the number of products or services that we've got to offer? It feels like a lot of times adding is the way to increase, whereas it's quite counterintuitive. I've found that subtraction is a large part of success, not just in marketing, but in almost every aspect of life, because we've got only so many units of whatever resource, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's energy, whatever else. And the more scattered it is, the less results you'll get per thing that you're trying to do. So if I'm trying to do 10 things, I've now got to divide my time, money, energy between 10 different things, right? Whereas if I'm hyper-focused on one thing, I've got one product that solves one specific problem for one specific target market, I can go all in, I can be hyper-targeted. So that's from my perspective, but also from the customer's perspective. People now are looking for very specific solutions to very specific problems. So even if you think about your own behavior, when you type something into Google or ChatGPT, you're going in with very specific queries. You're not just typing in doctor or car. You're typing in knee specialist and then the area that you live in, or you're typing in, BMW X5 versus Range Rover, whatever it is. So you've got very specific things. So your people are looking for very specific solutions to very specific problems. And if you're just like, yeah, we solve everything for everyone, that's not a message that's going to land with them.
So again, I need to fawn all over this book again because I want to talk about this lab. Being an accountant, I read through the book and I shared with you in our previous conversation. I was like, there was a part of it that wasn't groundbreaking. It just put it all in together in a way that I could follow. Like, it's like accounting. I don't have secret accounting information that automatically makes you a millionaire. And, here's the thing. If either one of us had that for marketing and accounting, we'd be selling it for a hell of a lot more money. But the chapter that literally hit me at my core was it said that it's titled, "What is your marketing budget?" I was like, here we go. This is the same thing I hear from every single marketing consultant out there. And the sentence said, "Your marketing budget is unlimited." And I was like, oh God. I was like, it really kind of shook me. I was like, I don't know about this. It said, "Your marketing budget is unlimited when you find out what works, and then you spend every bit that will give you a return on that investment until it starts to diminish your return on investment." Yes. And I was like, okay, as a numbers person, I can't argue with it. And what you drive home, and I think this is where your lab is, I really want to dive into, is what people don't do is they don't test what will or won't work. Yeah. They literally just say, put all our chips on this one and let's just see if it works. $5,000 gone, $10,000 gone. Your lab sounds like it's spending very little figuring out what that testing is to figure out where to place your chips.
Yeah, not only just, one issue, as you've rightly said, is people just put their chips in and then hope for the best. But an even worse scenario is when they don't even know what their return on investment. There's one of three scenarios that's happening in your marketing. Number one, it's not working, meaning it's getting you a poor or no return on investment. Number two is it's working, which means it's getting you a positive return on investment. And number three, which is the most common scenario, is you don't know, right? Because you don't measure and you don't test, right? So that is the most common scenario I come across where people, I think we're kind of getting leads from our marketing. We're not really sure. We're kind of scared to cut the budget because who knows, maybe it is working, maybe it isn't working. And now, we have infinite tools to test and measure and see what returns are on our marketing spend. And so if you're not using some of those tools, you're not implementing those things, you're kind of flying blind. It's kind of like if I decided to run a business and decided, I'm not going to bother with bookkeeping. I'm just going to, you won't know. Did we make a profit this month? Did we make a loss? Or all of that sort of stuff. You're just flying blind.
So you mentioned, in order to get to this point, you had to spend a lot of time and it got expensive. You had to spend money doing some of the wrong things. Yeah. What was one of the more expensive lessons you had to learn?
Oh man, there were so many. But I think the most expensive lesson of all is just trying to hack things together in a trial and error way yourself, and well beyond marketing and well beyond business. I've learned that lesson many times. And so now whenever I'm trying to solve a problem, I just pay for the answer now. I think it's embedded in us in school or our training that, that's kind of cheating, right? We've got to figure things out yourself. You've got to get the answers to the test yourself. And if you paid someone to do the test for you, that's cheating. You might get expelled, right?
Right.
Whereas in business, that's a very smart thing to do. I've been able to cut years off learning and trial and error and all of that just by finding the guy who's the expert at that thing and getting him to give me the answers or getting her to give me the answers. And so I think that is the best cheat code on the planet. It's one of the best bargains. So whenever I have an issue in my business, in my personal life and whatever, I just find the person who's got the answers and I just pay them what they want.
With all of that, I remember reading the book and it said, hey, if you want to fill out your own template, go to our website. And I was like, okay, and I go to get my template to fill it out. And you ask for my email address. And I'm like, oh, you devils, man. You literally wrote the book and told me what you were going to do to me. And I'm doing it. But I was intrigued enough to go through it. So then after that, it's like, if you'd like to learn more, schedule a call. And I was like, you know what? I've heard about this. It's part of it. I was like, I needed to throw myself through what you said you did to see, like, okay, is this legit? And so I'm like, I'm talking to my team. I talked to my assistant and my practice manager, Jonine. I'm like, okay, we're going to go through this. Let's at least listen to see what it is. I get on there with the salesperson, and they're like, okay, here's what we have. And he's like, we've got this program that's the enterprise program. And I can't remember the numbers, Allan, so just bear with me. It's like, we've got this for $30,000. We've got this program right here, which is, $10,000. And then I think the self-implementation for a couple $1,000s, right? And I remember the sales guy, he goes, but I really think where you would probably benefit the most is in this $10,000 range. And I remember going to him and saying, I remember from your book that it's best to have these 3 tiers. And you have this one that's the introductory that is kind of beneath people, and this one that seems out of reach to drive them to there. And I said, I just feel like that's where we're going. And he goes, no. He goes, where your business is, I think you really need to be there. And I was like, but I really want the $30,000 one. And the look on his face that he was like, he didn't even know how to respond at that point. And he's like, well, we could do that, but I still think this is the best. I was like, I'm just kidding. I see where you're going. You've walked me through the system we're in. But I got to be honest, it was so reaffirming to go through that. And not only go through that and sign up. So again, for people out there, after you read this book, I do implore you all to check out Lean Marketing. It's a program that we've been in for a year that has literally, going back to what Allan said, you can go through the book and you can do it yourself. Yeah. Anybody can do it. They can, paint by numbers if they want. Yeah. But literally having some accountability partners, having a panel of experts. And Allan, I mean, you throw the kitchen sink. Like, I've sat in meetings with you, your CEO. Like, there are people just like hammering you with information along the way. So again, I got to applaud you that literally you tell us what to do and you end up doing it to us, and it to great success.
I love to hear that. Thank you. That's good feedback.
So as we talk through that, and I do even want to talk to you outside of the one-page marketing plan. One of the things that when I got to meet with you in one of these meetings, and I know it came from my meeting with Nate, who we've been working with, is the struggle that is kind of happening with social media for so many entrepreneurs. And the problem I had, and I'm sure you've dealt with it. Actually, I know you've dealt with it because you gave us really good advice. But we have a firm that does fractional CFO firm. You have a firm that does marketing. Yeah. We have a book. We want to sell a book. Yeah. We do public speaking engagements. We have another class we sell. We got, to be honest, I think you and I have that whole wide array. I've spent so much money on marketing, saying, I'm going to market the firm. I'm going to market me as a person. I'm going to market the book. And you literally, you kind of, said, no. Market you and have everything go through you to all those channels. Yeah. How long did it take you to figure that out? Because I see you do it so well.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, again, we test everything, and I want my core assets to be owned assets. So, a lot of, social media properties, let's say, for example, Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, they're all great channels, and it's wonderful to be on them and use them, but you're a tenant there. You're not a landlord. They're not something that you own. You can be shadow banned. You can be deplatformed. They can have an algorithm change which negatively affects you, whatever it is. So I want to make sure that the assets that I'm really putting time, money, effort into are owned assets, and then I'm using some of these other properties to drive traffic, to drive awareness, to drive people whose interested in what I do to assets that I own. So like my email list, for example. So we generate millions of dollars of revenue from our email list, and it's an asset that just keeps working and working and working despite whatever anyone does on a social media network or whatever else. Now, that doesn't mean ignore all other channels, but where I want to really put in a lot of effort into channels that give me outsized results. So that's why I focus on a lot of these channels that really own channels. So like, for example, my podcast, for example, my email list, my website, all of these sorts of things. These are owned assets that, someone can't take them away from me, right? They can't, an algorithm change can't negatively affect it. So, and it works incredibly well. So that's what our testing has found. Almost everyone that we start working with, a lot of what we do is starting to subtract. They're like, hey, I need to be on LinkedIn, I need to be on YouTube, I need to be on all these platforms, and it's exhausting. And like we said earlier, your focus is just split. So we figure out, okay, what are the 80-20, or what are really even the 64-4? Where can we have an outsized high leverage impact? And so we start to focus on those areas. And then down the track, as we nail one area, as we really build a lot of expertise in it, we can add another and another and another.
Yeah. And here's what it makes me mad, it makes me jealous, and I also think it's genius. It is the most plain looking white on black text on white newsletter.
Yep.
I get twice a week, I think.
Yep, that's great.
I read every single one. There's nothing flashy about it.
Yep.
And so number one, like, everybody's got a flash to make it do it. But you also, in your book, in your practice, like, why do we resist the email newsletter, considering how much on average we delete email newsletters on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so it is a lift, right? So it needs to be written, needs to be edited, needs to be sent out, all of that sort of thing. So the reason that it's plain is because I want to replicate what an email from a friend looks like. When an email from a friend comes through, it's usually just plain text. It's like, hey, you free on Friday night or whatever? They're not sending you lots of images and HTML and logos and all branding and all of that sort of thing. So the only exception would be maybe if you're in an e-commerce business or a business where shots of the product are really, really important. In that case, yes, absolutely send images in your emails. But other than that, I want to replicate what a one-on-one personalized email is. So even though I'm sending to thousands and thousands of people, the way I think about it when I write an email is I'm thinking one-to-one. I'm thinking like one person is receiving that email. So they get it from my name, they get it from my email address. It's a plain text email. I'm not... some emails, there's a call to action or a sell or something like that, but most of them, it's just value building. It's like, hey, my friend Allan sending me good marketing tips or good marketing ideas. And more than that, I think of it this way. I think, what would I send if people were paying money to subscribe to my email list? If this was a product, I think of my marketing as a product. So it's got to be so valuable that someone would potentially pay to subscribe to get these, right? So I'm not going to send spammy stuff. I'm not going to send crap. I'm not going to send things that are just interrupting their day. I want to send something where they're like, wow, that was really worth my time. That I would potentially pay to subscribe to receive that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you've got hundreds of thousands in that email list,
Yes.
and I'm sure you monitor it. There's the other part. Where do you start? Because there's a question: do you start with marketing dollars to acquire email addresses? Like, how do you get to the point where you have that library of addresses? Because I'm sure you started with 2 addresses.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I started with a 0.
Yeah.
So you've got to start somewhere, obviously. So one of the things I talk about, like one of the big sections in my book, Lean Marketing, is marketing assets. So, and you're a guy in finance, so I don't need to explain assets to you, right? Assets generate income. So if I own a house, I can generate rental income. If I own stocks, I can generate dividends. From a marketing perspective, you need an asset that's going to generate lead flow. So in the case of my business, it's my book, right? So we're on this podcast literally because of a marketing asset that I've got. You read a book, you came into our world, you connected with it, and that's happened hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I've been invited to speak, to be on podcasts. I get people who subscribe to my email list because of an asset that I've got in my business. It continues to generate leads, continues to generate clients, it continues to generate revenue. So in a similar way, you want to create an asset within your business that generates that lead flow. And so it's not necessarily, it could be a book, but it doesn't have to be, but it could be a tool, it could be an experience that you deliver, it could be a report, it could be a video series, whatever it is. But we want to have something that kind of solves a small problem for someone. So for example, again, using my book as an example, someone's looking to get better at marketing. They see, hey, I can do a one-page marketing plan. That's a cool little tool that I can use. And so they engage with it. So I'm providing something useful to the marketplace that solves a very specific problem for free. And then as a result of that, they feel like they're getting so much value for free. Well, let me see what else he's got to offer. So that's where I would start. And that's why we start with target market. We talked about target market because if you understand your target market well, you understand what problems they've got, and then you can create an asset that solves a very, very specific problem for your target market, and that's how you start getting email subscribers. It's how you get social followers. It's how you get people engaging with your stuff and reaching out to you.
So kind of in our professional service world and, providing, consulting services, continuous education, things like that. The big thing everybody's talking about right now is AI. Depending on the article you read of the day, we're going to be replaced in next week. Where is AI playing a part in your business?
Yeah, it's in fact we've got a goal in our business to triple our revenue within a year and not add any new staff, and that's largely due to AI. Now, the way we're using it is to augment some of our abilities. It's not to replace us. It's so we can make a person twice or three times more productive rather than replacing them. So I'll give you an example. So I had a leadership team meeting just this morning, and one of the things that we're adding is into our sales team is an AI agent that's going to be texting people who are more than 120 days old in our lead system, right? So it'll essentially engage them in a text chat. So that's an example. Then my head of program director, she showed me an AI tool that we've built that it actually reviews all coaching calls with clients and flags anything that needs her attention, right? Because she's now spending hours and hours and hours reviewing calls for quality control to make sure, that clients are happy, that, coaches are delivering the right material in the right way, all of that sort of thing. That's a lot of manual labor. Now with these AI tools, she's going to be able to do that in a fraction of the time and do it better. And it's going to, for example, score sentiment. It scores whether they were given action items, whether they're progressing well, all of those sorts of things. So things that would have been a manual process are now becoming automated and easy. And so we're able to do more with less. So they're just a couple of different ways that we're using AI. I use AI every single day in my writing, not to do the writing for me, but as a thought partner, as a writing assistant, as something that helps me do research as well. So we've deployed it extensively, and we're just going to do more with it. I kind of think of it like the Iron Man suit. So, Iron Man, Tony Stark is a normal geeky guy. He puts on the Iron Man suit, he can fly, he can do all of these crazy things. So it really augments his abilities, and I think of it very much that way.
All right. So you are telling me, though, that Sarah and Nate are real people. They are not AI bots I've been talking to.
They are very real people, but they're going to be augmented. Just like it's going to be Iron Man Sarah and Iron Man Nate.
No, yeah, and I've had many video calls with them. So, but it's funny that we're even getting to a point where they're creating video avatars of people you to talk to. So I know we're not there yet, but yeah. Yeah, but they have been great. What are some of the big success stories that come out of, out of lean marketing?
There's so many. There's a fellow I worked with for a while where he was kind of like he was umming and ahhing whether he should take a job in his industry or maybe start a consulting business. And one of the things that I'm so privileged to have is an insight and a behind the scenes look at different businesses in different industries. And so many industries, they're very insular, like where they price things a particular way, they deliver things in a particular way, and they almost don't deviate. Almost everyone's doing what everyone else is doing. And so in this particular case, he's from the construction industry, and he essentially does. I think it's called quantity surveying or estimating, or I'm not exactly sure exactly the process, but basically he reviews construction contracts, and that was in his industry. That's always charged by the day or by the hour, and so that's how you make money. The more hours and the more days you charge out, the more money you make. And so I talked to him early on, and I said, you know what? Why don't we apply the pricing model from the IT industry where you actually charge per a retainer per seat rather than per hour. And that way you can start to essentially create a conveyor belt or a systemized way of reviewing contracts, approving contracts, delivering that service for a fixed monthly fee. So from the customer's perspective, it's very attractive because they've just got a fixed monthly fee. They don't have to worry about how many hours you spent and then overages and then, wow, this month it was so much money. And then you've got a predictable revenue stream. And so he thought about it for a while. He implemented, and essentially he built a business from zero to, I think it was like a year and a half later, he was doing 2 million in revenue, 3 million in revenue. Now he's getting acquisition offers left, right, and center. And so he went from zero to this multi-million-dollar business and really disrupting his industry. And he's not doing anything dramatically different other than his pricing and delivery model. So sometimes just taking a different model from another industry and applying it to your industry can have a massive, massive outsized effect.
Well, and a lot of that is kind of figuring out what's working and not working in that industry, because it doesn't always have, everybody, talks about having the game changer or being the great disruptor, but sometimes the disruptor is something that's really, really small.
It's often really small. It's often really simple. It's often, hey, we're just going to do the same thing, but we're going to price it differently. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to deliver it differently. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do it faster. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do it with less risk. So we look at what are the levers that we can really pull that will make a massive, massive difference. We were working with a client in the diamond industry, and they've essentially tripled their revenue in the time they worked with us just by making some small tweaks in their marketing, starting to do things like collect email addresses, send out emails regularly, the way, so you listen to this and you say, hey, this all sounds really simple and obvious, but it's not simple and obvious when you're in the weeds every day, and then there's the nuance. What do we send? When do we send it? How do we format it? How do we write it? So they're simple concepts, and I agree with that, but often there's a lot of nuance in the implementation.
Building this platform, it's you're 5 years in. You said it's got some legs and it's running. What is your long-term goal with lean marketing?
My long-term goal is to keep doing the fun stuff like creating content, writing books. So that's for me personally. For the team, I just love seeing the business grow and grow and grow. So I think we've had like 80% growth in the last year, something like that. So we're growing really fast. And just to see, people in the team who maybe started off as a coach and now they're a leader in the business. Like my CEO, she started off just as a coach in the business, then she became the CMO, and now she's the CEO of the business. Just to see the growth of the people in the business, it's just so cool. And we very rarely have anyone leave, and when they leave, they often go to start their own business, which is really cool. I can't fault someone for saying, hey, you know what, I've really enjoyed working with you, but I want to do my own thing and start my own business. And they have my blessing. I'm not here to hold anyone down. I love that. So just seeing people stay for years and years often I hear people say, this is the best job I've ever had, seeing people experience growth. And of course, seeing clients get such amazing results, it really is life-changing. Having been someone who struggled in business and having been someone who was worried about how am I going to make payroll this month, I know what a difference it makes when you're relaxed from a financial perspective versus you're stressed from a financial perspective. It affects your health, it affects your marriage, it affects all sorts of things. So just the flow-on effects from some of the things that we do, I just want to keep making that impact, and I love showing up every day in the business.
Yeah. And while you're based out of Australia, you have employees all over the world, correct?
Yeah, we've got a team all over the world. In fact, we've got most of my team is in the United States. We've got some in Canada. We've got some in South Africa. We've got I'm obviously in Australia. We've got a couple of other people in Australia. So yeah, we've got people in the Philippines. So yeah, we're all over the world. One of the things I love is any time during the day or night there'll be someone working on the business, which is kind of cool.
Excellent. So, Allan, I really appreciate your time today. We will have links, to get the chapter of your book. I can't tell people enough to go read One Page Marketing Plan, Lean Marketing, the program, everything. I'm hoping when I graduate, I get a cap and gown so I can celebrate accordingly. But Allan, thank you so much for being with us today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. To watch more episodes of Influencing Entrepreneurs, be sure to subscribe on YouTube at Nexagy Education.